Hi everyone and welcome back to Girl and the Hammer. So today we're reviewing False Gods, which is the second book in the Horus Heresy series. This is a really exciting book review and it's our second one for the Girl and the Hammer book club. So I can't wait to share it with you. I hope you enjoy it and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel just to show a bit of support for us. So thanks and enjoy.
Our second book club review of False Gods. Oh god, I had to think about that then. It is False Gods, isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
It is. I'm just double checking. Oh, it's been a long day. So I am really excited for this one just because obviously been in contact with Graham and he has kindly answered everyone's questions. So he's answered them all, and he's answered them in a lot of detail. Like, they're really, really thought out answers. Which I was saying to Ross, it's really like blown me away. He's just been incredible. So what we'll do first is we'll do like our normal, what we thought of the book, and then around about halfway we'll do the questions, if that's all right for everyone else.
Yep.
Yeah. All good.
Yep.
Fab. So Ross.
Right. Okay. So, book 2 in the huge, never-ending series that is the Horus Heresy. So yeah, this time False Gods by Graham. I know Leanne said not to mention other books, but he has done quite a few other books of really good quality. I don't know if any of you ever read any of his other books. But yeah, anyway, this time he's got this huge mammoth task of kind of leading on from what Dan set up in Horus Rising. So, yeah, it takes place. Well, you read it. It takes place shortly just after Horus Rising, and I think you'll agree that the Legion is still kind of reeling from these aftershocks of the failed negotiations of the Interrex and all that kind of sort of thing, and we see a couple of key players showing their faces for better or worse throughout the series. One name comes to mind. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like that is where everybody wants to start with this certain individual. Yeah.
Yes, and there is a Facebook group that I have joined, or I joined it months ago. Fuck Erebus. Because
is that the literal name of it?
I said on the last one about I'd be interested to know what his voice sounds like on the Audible version of the books, whether he is the mustache twirling villain, because oh my god, you just reading about him and the way he's portrayed in this, smug, conniving scumbag.
Yeah, it's like Dick Dastardly.
Dick Dastardly crossed with like Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars, crossed with, I don't know, but
every villain you can ever think of.
Yeah.
Mike, I listened to Treachery and Betrayal on Audible, and he's in that. It's a collection of shorts, and he sounds exactly like you'd expect him to. It's proper kind of villain voice.
Yeah. And I would have gotten in away with it too if it wasn't for your pesky starting. Yeah.
Barbarian's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It always amazes me how he's just showing up at the right time. So obviously Horus is starting to show cracks in his, charismatic, this powerful nature, and just the whole stress of being the War Master. And then Erebus just slowly enters stage right. He's here at the same, exactly the right time.
I feel like he's been planning it for a while. Like this, what he's done, or what he's starting to do now in False Gods. It seems like it's been a long time planning for him. Like Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not just a long time planning for him, because ultimately I think he is a pawn himself.
Oh,
Oh,
definitely.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think he essentially comes across as he's the first one to turn, and it's his job to turn the big one that'll get
Yeah. Well, also, I
them
feel like he's
where
got
they need.
multiple threads on the pull. You know, not just Horace. Maybe he had a
Oh yeah,
little pull at Rogel Dawn, or maybe he had a little pull at some of the other Primarchs as well.
yeah.
Especially the fact that some of them are pretty smarting over the fact that Horace got named War Master. You know, there's some really bruised egos there.
Yeah.
So
And it actually mentions it in the book as well, that Horus knows about these bruised egos. So I think it's just the way. I mean, you hate Erebus, but you've just got to admire as a character that the way he's written, how good at manipulation he is. Because
And
he's
he's got
essentially
massive balls, hasn't he?
yeah, absolute. The size of the cojones on the fella, but also it's that he's essentially coming up or acting through this plan, and he's turned around and basically gone to the one of these demigods, that are all supposed to be cleverer, smarter than the rest of us anyway, including the rest of the Space Marines. They're a step above again, and he's basically just gone, yeah, I can get you twisted around my little finger doing what I want. And it's like the way he actually persuades Horus to go to Davin's moon. And it's like, and it takes Loken knowing what he's already got suspicions that, and it's not until Loken goes away and has a think about it and like goes, is he? And he goes, and then he's not entirely sure, but it's like it takes him a while to figure out that, yeah, he's manipulating him.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
Hugely.
He doesn't do that until he's spoken with. I think it's with Carcasey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
Was
Carcasey
it?
goes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's an act. Yeah, it's a good act. And it's like until that point, Loken doesn't know either. And Loken already suspects Erebus of something dodgy.
It's meant to be a new concept, isn't it? That Space Marines aren't as brotherly and tight as they originally thought, isn't it? It's like the idea that one of them is lying to all the others.
Yeah, it's completely alien. It's a complete alien concept to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially with the lodges.
Yeah, I was going to say the lodges. And it was finding out that Erebus set up that lodge. What was it called?
It's the
It's not the Serpent Lodge, is it?
It is the Serpent Lodge.
Serpent Lodge. He set that up.
Yeah.
Do you think when he set it up, that was his plan all along? To get to manipulate people like the Mournival and others to then whisper in Horace's ear, because Horace listens to the Mournival, doesn't he? So he'll take.
I think that was ultimately a plan. I'd be surprised, like it was said, I don't think it's the only game he had running.
No.
And I think it's maybe that was plan A, but I think there's possibly a plan B, C, D, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, on the face of it, he's not really. All he's saying is that this planet, Davin, the governor, Temba has rebelled. Which they've seen. I mean, you've just come from Horus Rising, where they've gone and took over this, other emperor. So it's not so far a stretch to say this other planet has rebelled, forsaken the Imperium, blah blah blah, and basically Erebus riles up Horus and then gets the whole Legion to converge on the planet's moon to illuminate him, basically. So he's got him riled up, and then he's right, it's checkmate now. He's on the planet where he needs to be, and then he can take it from there, really.
Yeah, I hate him, but he's just such a good character.
Exactly.
Like, you can't. Just the way he's written, I suppose, and the way he is,
Exactly.
you love to hate him.
If he was a badly written character, you wouldn't really care, would you?
No. But he's very well written, and he's just so sneaky. And I think at first as well, you don't really know what he's trying to do. But for me, anyway, it's only the second book that I've read, and you don't really know, like, oh, what's he doing that for? Like, what is his plan with it all? And then as it comes to the end and it's sort of slowly unraveling, you think, oh, that is good.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the powers that be kind of controlling Erebus, this is the first real taste of the kind of the warp that you get. I mean, obviously on Horus Rising you have a little bit to do with the Whisperheads and stuff, but this is the first real kind of taste of the powers of the warp at play in this book.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're just being introduced to it a little bit more, because like we were speaking earlier, and it was they don't actually know what the warp is. Like Loken only found out about the warp when I think it was Horus told him. Was it Horus that told him? So it's all very new to him. Oh, Chaos, sorry. He's only started to learn about Chaos and what it is.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, as an introduction to it for them as characters, when they went to Davin's moon and just the whole way it was described, and obviously I'm a 40k Death Guard player, so everything about rot and disease and just that sort of how they're portrayed now in 40k, to actually read that in the book and go, and I recognised it as soon as I could recognise, this is Nurgle. This is exactly what Nurgle is about. This is straight away. So for me, knowing about that, it was good, because I knew straight away, this is, and it sounded exactly how you would expect a Nurgle-plagued planet to be.
Yeah. Do you think it could have worked with any other of the Chaos Gods? Do you think Nurgle has the best impact of this?
I think at this point Nurgle has the best impact, because especially with the dead rising, and essentially overwhelming the Space Marines.
But it's also the disease element, like Yugen Temba. It was Yugen Temba, wasn't it? He was corrupted, and it's kind of like a disease that kind of took hold of him. Like
creeps in, which is what Erebus has done here. He's creeped his way in. He's not smashed his way in like Khorne, or seduced his way in like Slaanesh, or played game. Well, I suppose he has played games. There's a little bit of Zeech coming to play here with his plans and schemes, I suppose.
It's definitely like a disease that's taken him, and you can see like when there was a part in the book where Horus, I think he kills Yugen, doesn't he? But he could see like Yugen Temba fighting with himself, and he comes back, doesn't he? At the end, like
he was getting flashes of the original Temba, or the true Temba inside, screaming about what, almost like he was being controlled. Yeah,
like he didn't want to be that way, which was really, that whole scene though on Davin was just, I was sat eating my lunch at the time, and it made me feel really sick. Like, it was that well written that it was just
but also the description of the dead coming back. So straight away I'm thinking poxwalkers, because that is classic poxwalkers. They're essentially zombies, but then they're talking about the demons, the one-eyed demons that are coming up that are just like disgusting and plague-ridden and all, and they're plague bearers. I know them because I play them, but to see the description of them and recognizing them straight away, because they're putting that image in your head straight away, so you know what they're like, you know what they look
disease,
like, and you can imagine what it's like to be in that situation.
That's also just one side of his plan, the disease side of it, getting Horace, infected. The other side of it is mental state as well. He's basically been elevated from, this warrior who's going out on the crusades, bringing them all, into compliance for his father's sake. But now he's just been elevated to like what is the biggest desk job in the Imperium. He's got to run all the other 18 legions, and he's got to answer to this, answer to that, and he must be so weary at this point.
And that's part of his motivation for going to the moon, isn't it? It's like, I didn't do this job if I couldn't sometimes go out and fight as well. He's basically, it's his pride going,
I'm still a warrior.
I'm not just a desk jockey.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's his downfall. It's his ego.
Yeah, and that's what you see in this book, isn't it?
Well, he does. He rushes off to Davin, and he wants to be a general again instead of just the War Master.
Yeah, he just couldn't let it go, could he? He's just, and I feel like in the last book they kind of hinted. No, it was this book when they brought Petronella in as his own personal documentarist.
Yes. And
he was very much like, well, if everyone else is getting one, well, why shouldn't I have one? And that's it's quite egotistical sort of thing. And
his ego wanted his story told, didn't
it? Yeah. And I think, that's where chaos has creeped in, and that's how Erebus has managed to be sneaky with it.
Yeah.
Played on it.
We meet Magnus for the first time as well, don't we?
I know, do you know, I've got that. I really like him.
And it surprised me with Magnus, with where it came in, because I wasn't aware that the Council of Nicaea had happened all before this. Obviously, I knew it, but I didn't realise it would be brought up so soon about Magnus's involvement.
Because
that entire sequence for when Horace is wounded and he's seeing the different people in his vision, a wolf and Hasta Sejanus, is so well done, and it kind of, for me, sets up a lot to do with Magnus. Of you can see his good intention.
Yes.
But do you not think that if he'd have come as Magnus rather than a wolf to speak to Horace, it would have been completely
different.
It's a case of whether he would have been able to, maybe.
I'm not sure. Obviously, this is the first time I'm hearing about Magnus, so I had no idea who he was, or anything. And honestly, I'm still getting used to like all the different characters, a little bit of the story, everything, like the setting. And what is Magnus? Because obviously, I thought magic and stuff, supernatural things weren't allowed.
Well, this is the whole Nicaea. If I'm pronouncing that right. Basically, it's something that has happened prior to this, where basically, like you say, Magnus is, and his whole legion, because he is one of the other Primarchs. His whole legion the Thousand Sons were very psycho heavy. And basically the Council of Nicaea is where the Emperor turns around and goes, no, we're not having psychers. Psychers do not happen. And it basically bans it. And I was feeling that will turn out to be something later on in the series, and that will have an impact with regards to Magnus. But as of for now, that's kind of why you hear when you see Magnus talking to Ahriman, and Ahriman's like, do you want to do this? Because, you know, the Emperor has said no. All this sort of stuff. And then, yeah, so that's kind of... Magnus is doing essentially the wrong thing for the right reason.
Magnus seems like he considers himself to be an exception to the rule. And I think that is a trait that a lot of the Primarchs show in one way or the other. They think that the rules in general don't necessarily apply to them.
Yeah.
And I loved Magnus's intentions because he deliberately placed himself in this very dangerous place in a desperate act to try to save his brother and to prevent him from doing something very, very bad. And it seemed... I don't remember exactly if he had already had discussions with the other Primarchs about some of these things that Horus was doing, but if I remember correctly, it seemed like Magnus might have been the only one who was really seeing that Horus was going down this dangerous path and was willing to go out and try to help him, where the other Primarchs were either dismissing it or ignoring it or weren't taking the threat as seriously.
Yeah, as far as this book is concerned, it jumps straight into Magnus basically going, we've got to do this because I've seen where this leads. Yeah. And I really liked the fact that when Erebus is in the lodge on Davin, talking to like the priestess, and she's like, oh, there's another president trying to persuade him, and it's like a oh bugger moment for Erebus, and it sort of gives you the impression that Magnus almost stopped it.
Yeah. Do you think that's why he chose Sejanus as his disguise?
Absolutely. I think I 100% think that's why he intervened.
Yeah.
At that point. It was like, if I don't jump in here, the plan could go wrong.
As one of Horus's favourites.
Yeah.
And at that point, too, Horus essentially had... I mean, he was in the warp. He was in the place where he was going to be the most helpless. So they could have basically woven any kind of narrative possible to try to influence him to follow chaos at that point. So who knows how many backup plans Erebus may have already had in place to try plan A, plan B, plan C, all to just change Horus's mind at that point and get him to agree to this.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that the way they persuaded him is by showing him the future of the Imperium as it is now, in the current setting.
Yeah.
Where everyone's worshipping the Emperor as a god, and the only Primarchs that they essentially are the ones that didn't turn.
Yeah.
And it's like they're saying only you can prevent this, as a way of making sure that it happens almost.
Yeah. But does it make you... That part of the book really made me feel like I would follow Horus. Like, I wasn't really liking the Emperor. I wasn't really liking either of them, to be honest. It was like... They were both just as bad as each other.
Yeah,
Well, we did only really see a lot of the. I think that maybe some of the dislike of the Emperor is because we're seeing his perception through the eyes of Horus and through maybe Lorgar's eyes after he. Has Robute already chastised Lorgar at this point when he made him kneel, or does that come after this point? I can't remember.
Chronologically, it's already
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I don't remember reading that.
But it's not. Yeah, because they mention in the book that the word bearers have been chastised because Lorgar once worshipped the Emperor as a god.
And he wrote the Lectitio Divinitatis, right?
Yes.
Which is
okay.
basically the book of scripture which illustrates the Emperor being a god.
Yeah,
which is brilliant because
that's one of the threads that Cinderman
Yes.
connects in the book late on when he's talking to Keela, because
Yes.
she's been out giving out this, and he connects the thread that, well, this is actually the Book of Lorgar.
Yeah. Man, speaking of those human, we talked a bit about the Primarchs and that. There's quite a number of human characters who make appearances from Horus Rising into this next book. Who, I don't know, is it Karski, the one who gets Carcasi gets beat up on the in the pub on the planet's surface. I can't remember the name of the planet again. I really like that character. I know he got his.
I
like
in
him.
this book. I think in this book he comes into his own.
Yeah.
He's definitely got more of a role in this book. And the bit that stands out for me is when they know something's going wrong, and I think it's him and who's the other one who's with
Mercedes.
Mercedes, yeah. And they go and they can't get onto the landing deck because it's too crowded, so they go up onto the observation deck. And that's where he sees the Mournival coming off the ship or coming back onto the Vengeful Spirit and basically trampling the crowd.
Yeah.
And essentially killing loads of humans as if they're not, they don't care.
Yeah. You really see the Legion scared, don't you? You really see the Sons of Horus scared for once,
Yeah, but he sees then essentially that the Space Marines, they don't care about baseline humans as much as they care about their own brothers and the War Master.
Yeah,
and there's that because that's where he starts writing what he essentially says are like his best poems. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked that, and I liked that Loken actually encouraged it in the end for him to speak the truth.
Yes. Yeah,
and that's what he did.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's why he died. He was speaking the truth, even when he nearly died in that bar in the first book, because he was speaking the truth, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And it came eventually, didn't it?
Yeah. It did.
Do you know what, though? Even other Space Marines wouldn't stand up to Abaddon, would they? But
no.
Carcasi did. About when Erebus gave him a lodge token.
Yes.
He calls him out on it.
Yeah. And Loken then sort of stood up to him then, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's when
essentially Loken stood up to Abaddon because of that.
That ends Loken's time in favour, doesn't it? It's from there that Loken's
the outcast or the outside.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also on the flip side of trampling the humans as well, you also have this really kind of like strong scene where the Lunar Wolves they find Horus kind of cradling his dead human friend as well.
Yeah, and it's I think that was part of the motivation for him going, because it was like, he was my friend and he's betrayed me and the emperor, so I've got to. That's why I'm going. He's no longer my friend, and then he sees something has corrupted him.
Yep.
But yeah,
Sorry.
it was. You do. Yeah, you do. You see the human aspect of Horus. He is human and therefore fallible in a way. But you see it as well with Loken and the rest of the Mournival, as Loken in particular, because he feels guilt for what he's done with regard to trampling the crowd, and that's ultimately why he goes ahead with what Caucasi was doing.
Yeah, I definitely think, because obviously when we're first introduced to them, they don't have feelings or anything like that, but now we can definitely see that they are. Sorry, sometimes it's it's one of their biggest flaws, having these human feelings, like Horus with his ego, but also it really, really helps Loken be like compassionate and just the brotherhood of it and everything. So yeah,
but he has this really close relationship with the irritate. What are they called?
Interact?
No,
Iterator.
Iterator. Yeah, Cinderman. That's the one.
Iterator.
Yeah.
I like Cinderman. I really like him, and I like his character.
I don't know if they started off. Both Dan and Graham have woven these human characters in, and I don't think the books would be quite as powerful as they are without these human characters woven into it.
No, I think especially with like I said, with the scene where Carcady sees the crowd just essentially get smashed apart by the Astartes, and it's like, look, and straight away from the way it's written and from the way his point of view is written, that they've essentially just killed a load of humans just because they were in the way. And it was like, and then, so that sets up that they're apart from normal humans. But then when you see Loken discussing how he's upset and feels guilt about that, it gives you a chance to see the human aspect of them.
Yeah.
And I think without the baseline human characters in there, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't have had the opportunity to get that sort of viewpoint.
Keeps everything in context, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good book for Tagadan as well, I thought. Because, particularly towards the end, Tarek's been, in the Mournival from the beginning, long-time lodge member. He's torn between his loyalties, his brotherhoods, and his human side, because he's another very human character, isn't he? And while we're talking about the flight deck incident, they're trying to find a scapegoat, aren't they? Because is it the Lord Commander?
Yeah.
Is wanting somebody's head to roll to appease, and the Lodge are trying to set Loken up, aren't they?
Yeah.
And Tagadan again, he's kind of pulled between that, or what he's always known, and doing what's right, and by one of his closest friends by that point, is it? Because they get really close, don't they?
Yeah.
And
sorry.
No, it's all right. Go on after you.
I think Torgadon's like starting to see it for what it is, isn't he? He's starting to come around because a lot of them, I just feel like they think that they're doing right, but they're not. Whereas I think Torgannon and Loken see the bigger picture. They see how Erebus, because they both said, I think he said he knew it was Erebus that had sent them somewhere, or it was something anyway, and he knew. And I just think they've got not like morals, but they see the bigger picture. Whereas I think the others are just so blinded by Horace being that and power and things and their own egos and stuff. They just can't see past it and see what Erebus is actually doing.
Yeah, and you also see it going from just Loken with his suspicions and Loken being a lone wolf to Loken actually then letting out his thoughts and his fears to one of his brothers, and it then becoming almost like you can see his group growing so that he's not such a lone figure in this, and he's starting to see that he's got people on his side.
We actually turn up outside the temple, don't we? Where is it like 2 full companies?
Yeah.
Ready to take Horus out, but he leaves at that point anyway, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's significant. The ones that went back to the moon to get the blade back, the anatheme, to find the weapon that did it. I think it's significant that those went, because they've then seen that, this is a Kinnebracht weapon. This was obviously the weapon that was stolen from the Interacs, and the only people who could have stolen that was one of us, or one of the expedition who was there. So that they've got while they're getting suspicious about one of their own, the ones that aren't are getting led away and persuaded by the one they're suspicious about, and you can start to see where the split between both sides is going to be.
I want to talk about what is it Keela and what she did after she read. Did she read a book, or was it the markings that are on Erebus's head or someone's head, and then summoned that demon? I don't even know what she summoned, but something came in the library.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Oh no, Cinderman summoned, and then she vanquished it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like channeling. She sees herself as channeling the Emperor, doesn't she? Almost like becoming a prophet of his.
Faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Religion, like a god, and they don't believe in any of that.
No,
Yeah.
this is the first time really that you start to question, religious zeal is kind of coming into the mix, lies, misdirection,
Yeah,
and obviously
it's also it's quite good to see that. Obviously, when they're persuading Horus, it's like, he's doing all this to become a god, and you're like, but he's been against gods this whole time, and it makes you start to wonder if, okay, maybe they're not actually lying, and maybe that is the Emperor's end goal as well, because that's still something not decided in the law up to now. So
what about whether or not the Emperor wanted...
Whether this was... Because obviously the Emperor is supposed to have precognition. The Emperor is supposed to be that good a psychic that he also has visions of the future. So if he has visions of the future, then maybe this was his plan all along as well. So that he could be where they're saying to Horus, oh no, his plan all along is to become a god. Maybe it is. Because
do you know what?
There are no good guys in this setting, are there?
I don't think he does see himself as a god, and I don't think he sees the chaos gods as gods. I don't know why I think that. It's just... Yeah.
I think he wants to be a god.
There's also the whole... Sorry, go on, Leon.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, there's also the whole kind of thing of, is a god even a god if they don't have any worshippers? So, until that point where they get worshippers, maybe that's when they become a god, because they're now worshipped,
That's a very Terry Pratchett like.
What is a god without any power or followers?
Yeah.
He may also want to just try to have a very long-term plan to perhaps redefine what the concept of a god even is. And that's why the Crusades might be part of his plan to begin with, so he can kind of get the galaxy into a more stable place and create a system and hierarchy that could truly function in a way where everybody could benefit. And maybe the fact that Horus ended up taking these actions is, just trying to jump clear to point 50 when they haven't gone through points 1 through 49 yet, and that's maybe why all of this happened. So it could just be a case of the Emperor not being more forthright with what his grand plan was for the future, and perhaps if he had done so, people wouldn't have had this resentment to him to play on to get to this point in the first place.
It'd have been a shorter series of books if he had said.
Yeah. Very short book.
I think it's a clever way of doing it, because I don't think it's ever fully explained what the Emperor's plan was.
No, but a bit of transparency might have gone a long way to, stopping the whole.
It's always been unite humanity across and conquer the galaxy. But why? It's never been fully explained, and why and how, and the details have never been fully explained. So I think that's a deliberate vagueness that has helped with the whole setting up until now.
Well, that's also the reason where new people come into the setting and go, oh my god, we're the evil ones. Like, if they just started off with the reason why we're bringing everyone into compliance, because the Emperor's got a big plan and no one's safe unless we do this. But no, they've got to start it with they're different. We're going to make them the same as us.
Yeah,
I love all of the insights we get with the Primarchs, because it seems like all of them have these really unique relationships that they can personally remember with their father, and they try to understand what his actions are through their interactions with him, but we never get to see that. So a lot of their decisions and their personalities are determined by what they think their relationship with dad is.
Yeah,
and then that ends up most of the time being a hindrance to what they're trying to accomplish, because they can't get over this misconception of what they think their dad wants.
Yeah, and because we never hear the actual viewpoint of his, we never know, and it's free for us to sort of navigate that in many ways and come up with our own conclusions. Yeah. And that's why you still get some people are, well, he was doing the right thing, and then some people are like, well, no, he's absolutely wanted to become a god in the first place.
Why do you think he never explains himself, the Emperor? Do you think that people can't comprehend his plans, that they're inferior in some way? And why doesn't he just tell his sons what his plan is?
Yeah,
got an ego.
it would. I think in terms of the story, if he had explained it, then possibly you wouldn't then have a story. But I think in terms of the actual way they're doing it, it's brilliant. By not explaining it, it gives all of these different motivations.
Yeah. But
It's also very relatable and real. My oldest son is 15, and I'm learning that teenagers truly are as bad as everybody says.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times when either he'll talk to me or the rest of my kids, they'll want to be part of something, whether it's like a family project or planning or whatever the case may be. And as a dad, I'll often just think, you know what, you guys wait here. I'm just going to go do this because I know how to do it. I know how to get it done. I'll just handle it and I'll do it. But then on the other side, that leaves them without having the experience for themselves. But part of me knows that, if I let my 7-year-old try this, he's going to drop a bowl. He's going to do something that's going to break or something. And so as a dad, it's so much easier if I just do it myself.
By the time you've explained why you've got to do it,
you could have done it.
You've done it.
But he's been on like a 200-year crusade, and then he's just gone, oh, actually, I've got to go and do something back home. So you're old enough now, you can fend for yourself.
But what another thing I liked as well is it's given you an insight into who the Primarchs are as brothers as well, and their relationships between each other. And you can literally say, well, yeah, that is exactly what it can be like between brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very relatable, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got siblings.
One of the quotes that Horus comes out with, I think, is it while he's talking with Temba, where he describes the Night Haunter, and he's like, moody bastard, but he's just who you want if you need someone scared shitless. And it's like, I just love the way it's like, that's exactly how you might describe one of your brothers or one of your friends.
Little shit.
Yeah.
Little shit, but good enough fight.
He's a right little twat, but when you need this doing, he's the perfect one for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Right, so does anyone else have any other things they want to discuss about the book, or do you want to go on to the questions that Graham has kindly answered for us? And then maybe we can have a little wrap up after.
Yeah. I mean, we could do the questions, but we could also talk about just how the book was finished prior to getting into Galaxy in Flames is the next one, isn't it?
Yeah. So maybe we should do, because they've got some. I'm sure we're going to want to discuss these answers anyway after.
Sure.
So we'll do the questions and then we'll talk about the end. So what I'll do is I'm going to read the questions that you put to Graham, and then Ross is going to read his answers, just because I can't do the answers justice with my voice like it is right now. So I hope that's okay for everyone.
Do you know who's wrote each question?
I haven't, but I'm sure people are.
Put forth a question.
I put a couple in, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same with me. So I'll let you know which if when I hear my questions, I'll let you know.
So there was 10 questions, and he's replied to all of them. So that was amazing. I hope I sent what I've written here, Ross, is what I sent him. So they should be in order. So we should match.
Sure.
You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. So first question was, I want to know if Horus betrays the Emperors because he's convinced he's not fit to rule the galaxy, or is it purely the influence of chaos?
Okay.
Is that anyone's?
Is that anyone here's? No.
Nope.
Okay.
Cool.
And Graham replies, I feel it's a mix of things. Chaos is the thing that opens the crack in his soul, the crack he's been able to ignore and suppress due to his higher consciousness seeing it for what it is. It's the place where whatever doubts, darker thoughts, and petty grievances he might have or are locked away. Things that might seem too small and too human to be allowed to the surface. And Chaos knows his weakness of his core humanity, the location of that crack and how best to get inside. It's that tickle of water that splits the mountain. Those dark thoughts prise him open fractionally with every passing moment to allow Chaos to infect more and more of his internal dialogue until it's exponential and the terror of these ruinous powers consume him and let those petty thoughts take over. There's still a part of Horace left, still a core that's the fully noble Horace, the Primarch who was once the Emperor's best and brightest son. And that's the part that's left and looks back at the Emperor when things come to a head on Terra many books later. But this is the first, or this book is the first step on that road to hell. So as you can see, Graham has replied to the fullest with his answers.
That I love that reply.
Yeah.
So good.
That is a writer's reply.
The trickle that splits a mountain. That is brilliant.
So, they're so good. When I was reading them, they're just so thorough, and
yeah,
there's a lot of time put into it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it was like you say that they're a writer's reply, but they're written very, very similar to the style of the book as well, which is what I really liked.
Yeah.
And you can almost just know, like, just from the reply, you know it's him.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to discuss anything about his reply on that one, or?
Well, something that I was thinking about a few times is that, we're told a lot in really flowery terms how the Astartes and even more so the Primarchs are kind of like mankind at their fullest potential or personified, and it seems like the thing that I just realized is like that goes for their emotions too. Their emotions and their what motivates them is amplified far beyond what most humans are capable of for good or for bad. What they're able to accomplish is like the best and worst of man times 1,000. And that's something that I'd never really considered before, that they are more than a man, but in their core, they are still just man for good and for worse.
Yeah, because we've discussed it here. It's about how certain parts of the books we've read so far show you that it gives them a chance to display their humanity. And he said in that reply, it's like that it was that humanity was the chink in the armor. There was the humanity as
the questions he had, like why, doubts,
and the ego, the wanting glory, because you see, it's at that point you've heard about the Space Marines. They're all talking about seeking glory.
Yeah.
So they've all got that bit of ego.
Yeah, and the pressure as well. He has to prove why he was chosen over the rest of his brothers.
Yeah.
They need to be seen, or he needs to be seen to be the right choice for the Emperor, and to prove, the Emperor had made the right choice in him as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he didn't think so himself, did he?
Sorry, what was that, Joe?
He didn't think he was the right choice himself, did he? So he was.
No, he says Sanguinius.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't he himself say Sanguinius should have been the War Master?
Yeah. So right from the get-go, that doubt is present. You've not even started the story yet. He doesn't think he's the right choice for it.
Yeah. He's got a bit of imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah, and Daddy mixed with Daddy issues, and wow, you just know he's gonna go over. Right, are we ready for question 2?
Sure.
Yeah. So, did Horace truly have freedom of choice when he was in the warp and chose to follow the gods of chaos, or was he doomed at that point anyway due to being stabbed by the anathema blade and force-fed Erebus's blood? I wanted to believe that his ability to work/choose was severely compromised. it made it easier to accept his betrayal?
This was one of my questions.
Is that one of yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Graham's answer was, I think that he was weakened by the Anaphame's powers to the point where that choice wasn't made with his full faculties in control. In the same vein as how no one makes good decisions when they're angry, or in the grip of any strong emotion for that matter. The ruinous powers knew they had to weaken him to the point where his decision-making skills were so severely compromised that it would be way more likely he would choose to step in the direction they wanted him to. So no, his fall wasn't inevitable. It's why Chaos was actively working on a goodly number of his brothers in case they couldn't get to Horus. Well, there you go, he's just confirmed that Erebus was pulling multiple strings.
Yeah, and maybe not just Erebus. Maybe there are others.
Yeah, well, he says a goodly number of his brothers, so to me that's other Primarchs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Absolutely,
So that's answered a few of our points from before, and the authors have considered this, that Erebus was, it does make you wonder who else he was whispering, and if anyone else was close to that point as well. Especially being scorned, by the father for not appointing him the War Master. I'm trying to think of likely candidates.
I would say a likely candidate would have been Lorgar.
Mm-hmm.
With the way that it was like he was going down the path of worship of the Emperor, and then to be chastised. Yeah. That's that will, I'm assuming that will ultimately make
the resentment from that one action.
The massive resentment from that will be a massive, well, screw you, I'm going the other way.
I do think Perturabo, if you set Perturabo's, cell phone notification to be Rogaldorn's voice, like chastising him, that would have also probably turned him traitor before too long.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is stuff that we will have to see in the coming books.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I love that answer, because one thing that I think that made Horus's fall so tragic was to see how well they described how much his legion loved him, and they would straight up say that they love Horus, and they want nothing more than his praise and adoration, and that was the greatest thing they could ever aspire for. So that truly set him up to be this incredibly charismatic, amazing person. And so I wanted him, like, I found myself wanting him to succeed, and I was like, you have to stop this, don't do it. And so I wanted to believe that, if it was full power Horus against these forces, he would have overcome them. So
yeah,
I think so too.
That's great.
And they knew that. That's why they had to chip away at him.
Yeah, and I think it also shows that where he says in the previous, where he says that they were working on other brothers, where if Horus hadn't, that same adoration probably goes throughout the legions. Like, each legion probably adore their Primarch just as much.
Yeah, they do.
And that's what enables, and it's that adoration that means that they follow the Primarch rather than the Emperor.
Except for maybe the World Eaters. They might be the exception.
Possibly.
Yeah, very angry.
Did you like that answer though?
I love that answer. That's good. I like to have my theory fleshed out, and it gives me a little bit of peace knowing that Horus at his best would have been unstoppable by the forces of chaos.
And I think it also shows that it actually shows that they needed to work on this. It wasn't inevitable for any of them, and it took a lot of work to get this sort of outcome.
I also really love that because the Space Marines, the Legions, they are by far my favorite part of this whole universe. And so for me, what this would suggest that the forces of chaos really don't stand any chance going toe to toe with them in any kind of, forces of might. They basically have to unravel them from the inside to have any chance of stopping them or being in a real opposition to the Imperium.
That's kind of the way they operate, though. If you look at the Eldar and Slaanesh, same sort of thing. They have to wait until that civilization reaches a threshold where the Chaos Gods can work their way in.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think it's also worth noting at this point that the Chaos Gods themselves, from what is established lore now, the whole chaos against the Imperium or chaos against the Eldar or whoever, that's just a minor sideshow as far as the Chaos Gods are concerned. Their biggest effort is against each other.
Yeah.
Mm.
Always trying to outdo each other, and
Yeah, the whole. It's very rare that all four will unite under a single cause. The vast majority of all goes on of their attention is outdoing the other three.
And when they do work together, it's strenuous at best.
Yeah, and it's like it only takes something small to fracture that.
Yeah, petty arguments, something so childish. To set it off. All the plans and all the schemes they've got going could just be ruined by a childish insult that one of them doesn't like, or that kind of thing.
I have so many things I want to say about Perturabo in where I'm reading right now.
You'll have
He's
your
such
chance.
a great character.
Are we ready for question number 3? Right, so I'm not sure whose this is. When Magnus went into the warp to try and talk sense into Horus, he appeared as a pack of wolves to Horus. Was this related to Horus's feelings toward Leman Russ in any way? In Wolfsbane, I think, we get some cool insight into when the Emperor first introduced Horus to Leman Russ. Horus was not impressed, looking down on Leman and thinking him nothing more than a savage brute. The Emperor had to warn Horus that Leman was far more intelligent than he appeared. Anyway, when I read this, I remembered that Magnus appeared to Horus in the form of a wolf, and wondered if that was a play by the Chaos Gods to enrage Horus or encourage him to refute Magnus.
Another one of my questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Okay, and Graham responds, I'm not sure it was related to that, no, as obviously Wolfsbane hadn't been written by that point in the series. If I remember my thought process at the time, the appearance of Magnus as a wolf was more to trigger the mnemonic associations with his legion's former name, the Lunar Wolves, to connect Horus back to the time when he was loyal, body and soul, to counteract the temptations Erebus was laying before him.
Okay, so that means that Magnus chose to appear as a wolf to try to get him to remember being a wolf. Okay, that's really neat.
It's quite a recent change, isn't it? To the Sons of Horus from the Lunar Wolves.
Yeah.
At this point in the book, they've only just done it, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't, before, obviously we don't really hear much at the moment about the Lunar Wolves, so we just know that that's kind of who they were before.
That makes
sense. I don't
know. Somebody mentioned when I posted that question, it may have been Ross or I can't remember who, but somebody pointed out the fact that they used to be Lunar Wolves, and I had completely missed that very obvious fact. So this is really cool to hear. That's exactly what the intent was.
And I think as well, as we go down the books a little bit more, we're not all going to remember every single minute point, and that's why it's good that everyone can come together and go, oh yeah, okay. Yes, that did happen.
It's like that one with summoning the demon, where Joe remembered. I totally forgot about that. With Zakila banishing it. Totally.
Banished it with...
Yeah, just a small part of the book completely went past me.
I know it was one of my favourite parts because it kind of it's just something that it just seemed so spiritual, and like she had faith in the emperor, and that's why she could banish him.
And it also
But
laid
yeah,
foundations for things like Sisters of Battle, and the way they kind of operate off faith alone as well.
Yeah,
I
it's
was,
essentially you're starting to see this is the start of the imperial cult of worshipping the god emperor, but you're also seeing that it's actually having an effect.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's banishing demons. It's powerful. There's something there.
yeah, really powerful. Right, are we ready for question 4?
Yep.
Yeah.
So my question would be how much guidance they are given as Black Library authors. For example, was the general plot of the initial few books already pre-planned, or was it left completely up to each author how far and what direction to take the story would take?
Yeah, this is one of mine.
Yeah.
Okay. So Graham responds, it's a heady blend of editorial direction and author invention. In the first few years of the Heresy novels, the authors and editors would gather a few times a year to discuss where the series needed to go and what sort of beats were needed to hit along the way. We'd plan out what stories we needed as well as the stories we wanted to tell, and the whole series has been a tremendous exercise in collaboration, with us taking what was already out there in the world and then working with that in the new stories we wanted to tell. So our mantra was always bring something new to the table in a way that honoured the existing material but added layers to it, so that even if you were new to the story of the Horus Heresy, you'd still find new depths to explore and be surprised by. Of course, each author added their own flavour and voice to the mix to bring their own unique sensibilities to the tale, but we all worked within the guidelines we set for ourselves, and we were always reviewing each other's work to stay on track.
Ah, cool. Yeah, it's kind of what I suspected, that because I don't think if they'd have written each book in isolation, I don't think you would get any sort of meaningful continual thread. But to hear that they've just all been, it's just one big collaborative effort, and they're all writing the books.
Yes, I asked a very similar question. I don't know if you want to read question 10 firstly, Anne,
Do you want me to read it?
and we'll jump back, because it's very similar to what you asked, Mike.
Do you want me to read it now, and then we'll discuss
10,
it after?
because it's very similar, yeah.
Okay, so the Horus Heresy is written by over 19 different authors across the series. How do you all maintain consistency and not create too much, obligatory?
Ambiguity.
This is why I am not reading his questions. Ambiguity, with the different characters and stories involving them.
Okay, so that was my question. Like I said, it's quite similar to yours, Mike. And Graham has responded. The key thing was collaboration. Our Horus Heresy rooms were the most, I can't say that one, fun and creative writer's room I've ever been in. There was just the right amount of ego in the room, such that everyone was just hurling ideas onto the table, and it didn't matter where they came from. Everyone piled in and made them the best they could be for whichever book was being planned out. During the actual writing process of each book, we had long email chains going to pose questions, generate ideas, suggest character beats, etc. that would either help the author in the midst of a book or set something up for a following author. For example, when Dan was writing Horus Rising and I was gearing up for False Gods, we were in near constant communication, with mails and phone calls going back and forth almost every other day. Dan would very generously set things up in his book, knowing he wouldn't get to pay them off, but I would in mine. Or I'd set things up for Jim or Gav, etc. When one author would finish a book, they'd generally make a document that detailed outstanding plot lines that were yet to be fulfilled and ideas that would be begun in their books that could be spun out into the writer's books or other writers' books. So yeah, it was a process of communication, collaboration, the joy of planning with the biggest toys and then doing cool things with them that made the process so much fun to do in a way that felt satisfying for writers and readers alike. There you have it.
So good. That response, I was just like, do you know what? You're just all, it's like kids again, imagining and playing and creating. And could you imagine doing that?
Yeah.
If only all of our favorite fictional universes could be created with such teamwork and collaboration.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a huge game of Chinese Whispers, where someone sets something up in his book, and then the next author takes it and molds it along the way.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of them were just begging to be the one who gets to finally kill Erebus.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting where they don't get to see their own plans come. They kind of hand the torch to the next author and say, right, well,
and it's how it's essentially just a team effort.
Yeah.
For the final payoff, but they're each doing their part, and I kind of get the feeling that like say that those writers' rooms, they must be just absolutely insane and such a laugh.
Especially during the Heresy series when that was first going on, because you don't get so much of that collaboration anymore. Now that we've kind of gone to the standalone novels, maybe if you're doing like a new edition series of books and you've kind of got a link with other people, not to the kind of depth and that the Heresy series went to.
Yeah.
No, I do think with the Heresy, it's mind blowing that so many different authors can put together and create this incredible story.
Without one overall sort of like director of the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think I would love to have heard kind of the bloopers reel of any arguments that went down or
the ideas that got rejected and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear like the stories that were never written.
Yeah. Or just arguments that they had, like, no, I'm not doing that in my book, or
Yeah.
I'm sure
there's got to be at least a few of them who have very detailed plans of the lost Primarchs and who they are and how to bring them back.
Yeah, probably.
Speaking of Primarchs, question 5, I think.
Question 5, yeah. Who is your favourite Primarch and why?
Oh, wow.
Any idea who sent this one in? No.
I'm not sure.
No one here? Okay, I'll just read the response. So, Graham replies, I have lots of favourites, and it's usually the one I'm writing currently. I love writing the honest, straight up and down, pragmatic heroism of Gulliman, the stoic determination and artistry of Perturabo, and, of course, the wild lunacy of a fallen Fulgrim. But each one allows me to scratch a particular storytelling itch. But if you make me pick one, it would likely be Magnus, as I love his arc and how he is the very definition of a tragic hero, one brought low by his inability to see his own flaws and who tries over and over to do the right thing, albeit by the wrong means, and ends up fashioning the bars of his own prison and engineering his own downfall.
So good.
And we touched a bit on Magnus before, and I was thinking that he is tragic. Everything he does or touches his hand to just goes wrong, even though he's got the best intentions in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really surprising to me because when I before I really dove into learning the lore of Warhammer, I remember seeing the Magnus model and some of his imagery, like in his current state, and it's like, wow, this is clearly a bad guy. Yeah. But then going back and reading about him in the Heresy, it's like this is nothing like the character model looks like. This guy seems like he's really good down to his core.
Mm-hmm.
And even after the mistakes that he made, it was always surprising that he still wanted to go back and try to fix it and try to be good and do the right thing. Where it seems like most other people, had they gone through that, would just give up at that point. But he was very resilient.
With Magnus, joining the traitors was survival, wasn't it? More than anything else.
Yeah.
He tried and tried and tried. But I think, like Graham says in his reply, his inability to see that he doesn't know everything, even in this book, catches him out time and time again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just keeps going the wrong way about it, even if he knows kind of like what's wrong or what's right. He just constantly messes up.
He needs a good wingman he can just run his plan by before he tries to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. We all know people who mean well but just can't help but screwing up.
Yeah.
And that's it's a very human thing, isn't it?
Warhammer was his sounding board, but he just never seemed to listen to him.
No.
Yeah, he's like, why did I ask you? You're wrong.
Yeah. Or is he just surrounded by yes men? Like, yes, that's a great idea, Magnus. You do that.
Oh dear. Are you ready for number 6?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Astartes don't feel fear, as it seems that a lot of the thought behind the decision to take Horus to the Serpent Lodge was fueled by fear being without their War Master?
Okay. Anyone's question? Yeah, no. Okay, Graham responds, the whole "and they shall know no fear" is part of the myth-making surrounding the Astartes. They do know fear, but they have the training and mental conditioning to control it absolutely and lock it away until the job is done. One of the underdeveloped details in the lore is that's part of the reason why Space Marine chapters have chaplains, as they're there to help Space Marines after the fighting is done. For the Astartes of the Heresy era, yeah, the idea of them being without their Primarch is devastating and strikes to the fear of any child being robbed of their father. And the idea of a Primarch could fall or could die, that's what drives them insane a little when they bring his wounded body back onto the Vengeful Spirit and basically crush civilians in their mad dash to get him to safety.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And the bit about the chaplains is brilliant.
Yeah. That's the primary role, isn't it? Is to, keep the faith of the brothers and make sure they're mentally stable, I suppose. Apart from the Blood Angels.
I don't know how many of you have got Warhammer Plus or have watched any of the stuff from that. But Angels of Death, it's all centered around the Blood Angels, and them going to this one ship of the Blood Angels going to this one planet out of a warp storm. And the very first episode has got one of the Blood Angels who's come back from the Death Watch. So, long story short, if you don't know what the Death Watch is, it's basically like Space Marine Special Forces, where the best of the best go to be with from all the different chapters, go to spend some time with the Death Watch. And this one Space Marine comes back and he meets the chaplain when he comes back, and it's the way the chaplain speaks to him. You'd think the chaplain would be like a priest preaching, and it's not. It's the way he speaks to the character when he comes back, and just talks to him like a friend, and it plays exactly as his responses come. There, saying the chaplains are there to essentially as morale and to decompress the Space Marines and get them to get around what they do and what they see.
Yeah. Although I can't see
this answer punctuates even more so how slimy Erebus is, that he was actually able to keep the Mournival out of the Serpent Lodge when they took Horus in to try to save him. That was just shocking to me, that he would somehow manipulate the most loyal of followers that say, no, you have to stay out, only I can go in with him, was just wild.
But it also goes to on a point though that he is in a position of authority, and his whole business is what he sells, isn't it? He's a salesman, whether he's selling the faith or he's selling something to Horus.
We talked about how some of our portrayals of him in my mind, and the only one that fit for me was Grima Wormtongue with Theoden of the Rohan. It's like everybody in Rohan hated him, but he was the one whispering in his ear the whole time.
Yeah, and that totally leads us into question 7.
You ready? It seems that Erebus is overwhelmingly despised by the fan base for obvious reasons. I feel that his early actions in the heresy were a big part of that, particularly in his role in False Gods. Did Mr. McNeill deliberately set out to create the most hated character in the universe, or did it just end up resonating that way with the audience?
This is my question.
Your question. How many did you put in?
I think I have one more, maybe one or two more. I just kept on thinking of them.
Okay. Graham replies, Erebus has always been a character folk love to hate, and early on we knew he was going to be the target of the reader's hatred, since the powers of chaos needed an early face to act as their agent in the mortal realms. Since there wasn't really much of a demonic presence in the universe, I think we knew he would be our bad guy in the early books, but I don't think any of us knew how horrible he'd be and how much folk would grow to hate him in the best possible way. I'm glad they do, as it means we did our job right.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
So good.
Mission accomplished,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
nailed it,
like
really.
you said earlier on, Leanne, you hate him, but
I
that's
love
because
him.
he's such a good character.
Yeah. I love to hate him as well. Like, I actually love hating him because he's so... he's so... he really comes to life for me. And just how he is, and you can really picture him, like you say, just sat there like this and just just all thinking up plans and
stroking a space cat.
Yeah. that's it, twisting his mustache.
It's so good that you don't have to be told he's a bad guy.
Oh, you just know.
It's the way it's written. It's just like, oh yeah, he's evil. But you can tell from the way he's written how smug.
Yes.
And how he knows he's manipulating you, but he knows he can do it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Smug git.
Yeah.
Bilious.
Definitely. Right. Are we ready to move on to number 9? So this is the last one because we've already done 10. Ready?
8. Number 8.
Oh, we've not done 8? Sorry. 8. Okay. Right. Also, mostly a joke question. Is there some kind of inside joke amongst the authors that the term carnal house must be used in every Warhammer book? I was completely unfamiliar with the term when I first heard it, but now that I've noticed it, I swear it's in every single book. So I had no idea what this is or what that is.
So a charnel house is basically...
Charnel.
I guess, yeah.
Charnel house.
It's basically like a building or a vault where you just pile bodies up in. Bodies, bones and corpses. Not a nice place.
Yeah, this was my question, and it usually surfaces in any kind of a description of a battle scene or something taking place. But now that I noticed it, I specifically try to listen for it in every single book, and I swear it's in all of them.
It is. I'm listening to Hallowed Ground about the Van Denst witch hunter father and daughter, and it's
Is
come
it
up
in
so
there?
many times. Yeah,
I'm going to look out for it now.
yeah, Charnel House. So he replies, it wasn't an inside joke, just a cool phrase we all naturally seem to gravitate towards. And like a lot of other words, and he says in brackets, I'm looking at you, Abilius and Chola and Singular, we used them because they felt very era appropriate and made our books feel authentically separate from one set in the 40k period. I think when you have a bunch of writers all trying to tell their stories and maintain a thematic foreline and develop a recognisable style for these books, it was inevitable that we end up with a shared lexicon. And we did eventually twig we were doing that and took steps to lessen our overuse of those shared vocabularies, but I'm sure a bunch still slipped through.
Oh, that's cool. That tells me that they care more than the average group of creators who work on like a shared project. That's really neat.
That's what I really got from Graham's responses and just the chatting to him, that actually I think they do care, and they're really involved, and they're not just, most of them aren't just writers, they play and they paint, and do you know what I mean? They're really involved. They are. They get to write for their job. Like, how amazing.
Although I wouldn't
That's
be
so
envious of that block library time frame they all get given.
I would do that, yeah.
Like bang a book out in 2 weeks sort of thing. You know, we got a new edition.
Oh, really?
Coming out. Maybe not so much as 2 weeks, but you know, it's pretty tight, I'd imagine.
Are we ready
Quality doesn't
for...
seem to suffer though.
No, of course not.
No. So it just goes to show that how good they are as writers.
There's a couple of books in the Heresy that we may want to skip, but we'll get to that at some point.
Or not. Maybe we won't get to that.
Maybe we'll read them and just we'll get into it with our thoughts.
Yeah, maybe we need to read the bad ones.
Yeah, if you can stomach it, I suppose.
Do you know what? Actually, that is a good point. Maybe we do need to read the bad ones. We can't just keep reading really good books that we like. We have to read everything.
You know what, though? At a book a month, it'll take us 5 years to get to the end at Siege of Terror.
I know. So I thought this. So me and Ross are currently we're doing AOS as well, aren't we? At the moment. So I'm doing 2 books a month.
Yeah, maybe some of these we can come up with a blog or a podcast or something to skip the ones that people don't want to read. We'll have to, because we don't even touch the 40k stuff yet. We'll have to come up with something for that, or increase the schedule and maybe do one a fortnight. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know.
Maybe for the ones that we don't like, one person can read it and then just give us the points.
Yeah.
Book report.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has to be.
I'm going to give you all homework.
It's not just it's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Graham's questions to his answers to the questions were really good. So I expect I've got high hopes for you all.
Oh well, you set the bar.
You can set the bar pretty high. Right, are we ready for number 9?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Were there things edited out or changed that could have taken the Horus Heresy in a wildly different direction? Not necessarily with the ultimate outcome, but with how particular characters end up at the end of the Heresy, or even in 40k.
Yeah, this is my other question.
Okay. Is that yours?
Yeah.
Okay. So Graham responds, no, I don't think so. Not really. Those characters who end up surviving into the 40k era had to survive, and those we knew died had to die. Hence, there was quite a bit of invention of characters along the way, so we could have more leeway in how we did things and kill folk off that the readers might have become attached to. Rather than radically change what went down, we wanted to add more layers to what you thought you already knew, so that your perception and or understanding of how things played out came to be altered and viewed with a richer understanding of why they went the way they did.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the way the lore is at the moment, nothing is entirely set in stone ever in it. So, yeah, it does surprise me a little that it was basically, well, these are the ones that are around now, so none of them can die. I could see that.
Yeah.
But could there have been a way of, say, having what we think was a traitor actually being loyal but being put down by the rest without the rest of the loyalists even knowing?
Yeah.
But isn't everyone Alfarius?
Well, yeah, obviously
Maybe.
there is obviously the I'm Alfarius and so's my wife.
So I was thinking this the other day, like I said, I was reading the Hallowed Ground books. I don't know if you've read them or you've seen the models associated with them, but it's basically the father and daughter witch hunter models.
Yeah, I've seen
the Van Dent models. So knowing that the models exist in the universe, I'm pretty certain they're not going to die in the book, no matter what gets thrown at them, because
they've got plot armor.
Because they got plot armor, yeah. They're a model that's currently in the range. So it does take a little bit of the thing away from them. You know, can they die? I'd be very surprised if they do, considering there's a model out for them. But maybe they'll surprise me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else who's got models like that who you just know can't die, no matter what.
We'll have to do a post or something. Someone will look into it.
So yeah, there was all of Graham's answers. I think you'll agree quite good.
I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Graham for taking the time out to write them for us, and just genuinely being the nicest person ever.
Exactly. He didn't have to do that. He could have just ignored your emails or whatever. Just no time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to sit down and write write responses like that. Just
because they weren't just quick off the cuff answers either. They were well thought out.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bloke who sat down and thought about what he's been asked.
Yeah.
Such a nice man. And what I'll do is I'll put the questions and the answers, his answers, in the group as well, so you've got them there to read over or whatever later on. But yeah, hopefully maybe in the future in one of his books we can get him to come and have a chat with us.
Yeah, hopefully, because he's got a few more books coming up, hasn't he? Did he do Fulgrim?
Yeah.
I don't remember if he did or not.
He does. So I looked the other day. He does the is it Thousand Suns? He does
Fulgrim.
Yeah, I thought he did. Okay, maybe.
Oh, that's
and I know he said he couldn't attend for family commitments, which is fair enough. But
yeah,
maybe he'll come next time. Maybe he can reach out to some of the others, see if they can, and if they don't respond, they'll say, "Well, Graham did."
Graham's our favourite.
He's the one that gave us your contact info.
Yeah.
The next author actually lives very close to me.
Oh, great! You can kidnap him.
I just have him sat here. By the way,
take his gag off. Now you can talk.
I don't need to be hearing about it now.
Blink once for yes, twice for no.
But we have we have the same local Warhammer store. So he literally does not live far.
Who is the next author? I can't remember.
Get to the bookshelf.
Ben Counter?
Yeah, Ben Counter.
There you go. So apparently he lives very local to here. So we'll try and get in touch and see. But you never know. Never know.
Okay.
If not, we'll get Graham back on.
Yeah. Well, I think what are we on now? Over an hour. I think to wrap up, just talk about the way the book ended. The way the battle of. I'm sure you was wearing the T-shirt last time, wasn't you, Joe?
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
That's the next one.
No, but it starts to build up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Horace is lining up his pieces, isn't he?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
At the end of this one.
Yeah.
From Regulus at Mechanicum, Fulgrim,
Helen
even
Petronella.
Angron as well. He's getting the people close who he needs, and you can just tell it's setting up for a shitstorm, innit?
Yeah.
Who was Petronella's bodyguard that he got on side?
Oh,
Magard.
Magard, that's it.
The mute.
The mute. Yeah. He played that very well. With that. Yeah. Which means, wow, he kind of double crossed there, didn't he? That was quite at the end, wasn't it? And then trying to line things up to obviously throw Loken under the bus.
Yeah.
And take the fall for the murders of when they were like the stampede.
Yeah. Make him the fall guy for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he knows he has to clean house within his own legion, but can't seem to be involved with it at this point.
Yeah.
But I think it also speaks to the ruthless streak as well. That he knows that before he takes on the rest of the Empire, he's got to take on the loyalist elements that.
Yeah, he needs to get people on his side, and he needs to see where others. He's drawn a line in the sand now.
Yeah.
And he needs to know where people stand, either side of it.
Yeah, and it's the old you're either with me or you're against me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like any more after that, we'll probably get into spoiler territory for the next book.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah.
I feel like this is obviously Horus's Descent now, isn't it? And then Galaxy in Flames, the next book, should make things a lot more clearer in terms of where everything's going and whose side, who's on, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next one, just because this one really set the story for me. Like, I really like Dan's book. I really like Horus Rising, but this kind of took it to a whole new level. I really can't wait to now dive even deeper into it.
Yeah, it's for me, Horus Rising, after reading this book and Horus Rising is essentially, it's almost like a prologue. It's just introducing you to things, and then this book is where things really start hitting the fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if they decided who went first. Was it a conscious effort to say, right, Dan, you're going to have to start this one, and I'll follow up, sort of thing.
I bet
go on, you go first.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, I wonder if they did as well, because obviously back then they were only expecting a short series.
It was a trilogy, wasn't it? I'm sure it was just a trilogy.
Like a trilogy or something they were initially expecting. So I wonder if they said to Dan, "Oh, well, you do the first one, I'll do the second one, you do the third one." But now it's like 50, 60 odd books later, and Dan Abnett is doing the last book.
That'll be exciting.
In 4 books or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh God. There are so many books. I don't know how we're going to get through them. We'll get through them eventually. So
at Audible to 1.2 speed.
Yeah.
That's the only way, isn't it?
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
If you go too far, it distorts them pretty badly, and it takes away from the fun.
I'm going to start doing that. Our next book, obviously, Galaxy in Flames. We haven't set a date yet for the next book review, but we will put that up on the group soon, and a time and everything, and then hopefully, we can go from there. So starting the new book tomorrow.
Excellent.
I'm thinking maybe is 4 weeks long enough for everyone to read it?
I think so.
So the 28th is the next Sunday. I mean, if Sunday, I don't know. We'll have to. We can have a look, but generally about 4 week turnaround, I think, is reasonable.
Yeah, that's a good. And if you're struggling with like reading it all through like and getting to the end, then you can always join and skip off at the end, so we don't spoil it.
Spoilers this time, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
We've done well.
I know we have. I've not had to say no spoilers.
I think it was a conscious effort from last time where we kind of derailed, but it was so exciting. We just wanted to get to the juicy bits, didn't we? Which I feel like we're starting to get to. We all wanted to talk about Erebus last book. Well, now we've got a chance to talk about him. So
yeah,
I think so too. And I did make a conscious effort not to read the next book, so I don't know anything that's gone on. Whereas I had already read False Gods by the time we'd done the book review, because I couldn't wait. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Right, so let's wrap up tonight. Does anyone have anything else they want to say or talk about? Or should we just leave it there and wait till our next one?
Just thank you for the time and effort that you and Ross put into organizing this. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you for coming.
And it looks really cool as well.
Yeah, that's all Ross.
Yeah, we didn't get to see that last time, did we?
No, no changes. The tech priests have been at play. Used the right sanctified oils, and it's
you hit it with the right hammer.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
the thrice blessed.
Yeah.
No, it does look awesome. So thanks everyone for joining and coming, and I will see you all. Well, we'll all chat in the group, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again in another 4 weeks.
And if you know anyone else who wants to take part in the group, or plug those social medias and get people involved.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I will definitely sort out some stickers and mugs.
And hoodies and hats.
And hoodies and hats and gloves and socks and pants.
T-shirts.
Oh, yeah.
T-shirts, whatever. I'm sorting it out.
Maybe some full Mark 10 Space Marine armor with the logo on the chest. Who knows?
Yeah, I'll sort it out for you guys.
Now. I don't Mark 10. Primaris can use Terminator armor now. It's fine.
Yeah, I must admit that the guy at Warhammer Fest, the Terminator there was huge, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
huge.
I saw that.
So cool.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to go next year.
Definitely.
Or we'll have to arrange like a meet-up at Warhammer World or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Play or just meet up. I've never been.
At least for us, I know for Dane it's not exactly central. Well, maybe.
Depends
how you look at it.
Where I am everywhere. I have travel. So
depends how you look at the planet. Is the UK central?
Sure. Well, that's where time begins.
Yeah,
right?
there you go. That'll do for me.
Anyway, thank you everyone so much for coming, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.